Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning to the podcast. I very much appreciate everybody watching it. The first episode went very well, and I got a lot of feedback from you. That's a thing that I really, really appreciate. Thank you very much. Now you tuned in for another episode of the podcast, this time with a guest whose name is Timo Sivula. He's He's a lifelong manager, worked for 3 years as a sales director of Nokia in Singapore, then rang a lot of startup companies from basically negative numbers up to getting millions in revenue. Had a huge project in the Kokkola area as well, and now he's CEO of a local startup company that is working in the solar industry. He's not coincidentally also my judo coach and a passionate ice boat sailor. So I hope you are going to enjoy the podcast. I also would like to thank Centria, University of Applied Sciences, for providing me the equipment and the premise to record this podcast in. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. So, shall we?
We shall.
How are you?
I'm fine.
It's really nice to see you. Thank you very much for accepting the invite.
Thank you for the invite. This is a great pleasure and also very scary.
No. It's just a conversation as if we would go in a car. I'm sorry for the phone.
Accident.
I'm just pulling up some notes on you.
Okay.
No, nothing special. How are you in your new job?
This is my first day in a new job, so I made a couple of decisions and signed a lot of papers. So, yeah.
But first day, I thought you started already before.
Not really. No, I
Okay.
worked 2 months as a strategic consultant for the company. So that was during my induction period.
Okay.
And yesterday was in fact the first day of my new contract, but today was the first day I was
Okay.
at my work. Yes.
Right. That's and so far so good.
After one day.
After one day, I guess.
Yes,
So right.
yes.
How is it being a CEO?
Well, it's not the first time I'm on this rodeo. So let's put it this way: not as exciting and not as scary as it used to be the earlier times. But of course, I also know what's waiting. So in that sense, I know that there's a lot of challenges up ahead. Luckily, the industry that we are in is in a growth phase, so it's gives you some level of peace of mind to be working in a growth industry for a change.
Yeah, I can imagine. Solar panels. I don't know if I told you already as well. I think I told you, but like your whole story is so similar to my father's, and he's also now working on some project with solar panels and all that stuff with you with the sports hall and his actions before in our like sort of communal.
Well, I think everything else except I haven't been in jail yet.
Yeah. No,
I'm not planning to go.
No,
in.
that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Well, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about is of course my knowledge of your work experience is limited to what you have written on a LinkedIn profile as it usually is. But we've already talked about this several times before. You've worked for Nokia in Singapore, right? For 3 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I did.
How was that experience? Because I hear just greatness about Singapore, and so I just wanted to see how it actually is.
Best ever.
Well, then we can wrap this podcast up.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So I mean, how did you get there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So I'll take it a couple of steps further back. So I joined Nokia as a master's thesis worker, and every boss I had, I told I want to have a expat contract somewhere, anywhere but in Finland. I want to go abroad, and the seventh boss, Janne Ormolainen, I told him that now you are the seventh boss, and we have the same discussion I've had with every boss, and I'm still here in Espoo. How come? And Janne then gave me probably the best career advice I've ever had. You don't try enough, Timo. And that stuck with me, really. And then I understood that it's not up to the company to send me somewhere, but it's up to me to get the job. So then I made a couple of phone calls and ended up with my whole family in Singapore. And the change is huge. Like compared to, you start with the climate. Finland is a 4-season climate. Singapore is a 1-season climate. It's 150 kilometers from the equator. People are multicultural, multi-religious, multi-language, and very, very different from the European mindset. Maybe being Asian, they are the most Western country in Asia, but coming from Finland, they are very, very, very foreign. I made a seminar work at the university about the Far Eastern cultures when I was studying, and that was maybe one of the steps that I took to moving to Asia overall. Low taxation, very hardworking people. They say they have many religions, but there's one religion that unites them all, and that's the love of money. and it's all about money. The whole country is all about money, and it's extremely clean, extremely safe, warm. You don't need winter tires. Kids only need one set of clothes, and I could go on. 3 years of experience is a lot to condense in a short podcast, but it's different, and it was an extremely good experience.
Well, then, if because this is pretty much what I hear from all quote unquote my sources, but all the people that I know that had anything to do or did at least any like research on Singapore. This is like all I hear is praise. Is there any downsides to it? Okay, so if I rephrase it, maybe. Is there any reason why people would not want to live there?
It's a bad place to be a criminal, definitely. It's even if you have only slight criminal tendencies, you really don't want to get into jail or in any. No, you don't want to be a criminal in Singapore. But if you behave like your mother taught you to behave, you'll do fine. And it might be boring. Somebody says it's like Disneyland with a death penalty, and it's extremely safe. I had the sort of privilege and burden to travel a lot when I lived there. I was running an operation of 12 countries around the whole APAC region, and distances in Asia are different than they are in Europe. Like you can fly from here to anywhere in Europe within 3 hours, but there it's 12 hours. And they are might be 3, 4, 5, 6 time zones away in the whole region. So I traveled a lot, and because I was running a sales operation, so I met the local sales organizations, and that meant that I left on Sunday night with a plane, and then I came home late on Friday night, and then I only had to see sort of Singapore mostly during weekends. And for me, it was of course a safe place to come to because I knew there was like everything was clean, everything was organized. It's in that sense it's similar to Finland. And coming from less developed Asian countries where I traveled quite often, it was always a relief to come back to Singapore because everything was organized and just worked. But I think my wife got bored there because she did only occasionally work, and she wanted to move out because she got bored. And I think if that's the downside of being a very structured and safe country is that might be the. So except being criminal, also being unemployed in Singapore is not fun. You really need to have some, unless you have a lot of money, of course. But it might end up being boring.
That's interesting. And then you say low taxation, right? But you also say like sort of high social I don't want to say security, but I mean clean streets, few criminality rates, fewer. Is how does that work economically, if you know?
When we lived there, they had this sort of economic crisis because the Asian economy was doing not so well, and for a long time, Singapore had been very anti-gambling, and gambling is a big thing for the Chinese population in Asia. And there was a long ethical discussion and political discussion in the country whether they should include gambling or not. They then finally made the decision to start a couple of big casinos. The main industry in Singapore has been the port. They have a free port in Singapore that brings in a lot of money. And then a lot of entrepreneurship. It's sort of, when we lived there, I think the main income for the state was the port, and then the Central Provident Fund, which is a sort of combined pension and housing system that they have, which is run by a state company, which is extremely rich. So the state is rich, it's very well off. They have run the government is running very smoothly. So they can afford keeping taxation low and keep quite a high growth rate at all time. And now with the casino industry, I think that made a sort of additional notch to the growth of Singapore. My data is outdated. I still keep in contact with my group or team from Singapore, but I haven't really followed it very closely for a few years.
That's interesting. By the way, sorry, the coffee is not really good. But yeah, well, that's interesting because I mean my knowledge about Singapore is very limited. But to which degree it is like a quote unquote free democratic country? It's not really, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's a family company. It's not a democracy. It's a family company.
That's what I read.
They have a sort of a fake democracy. They have two parties, and the opposition party stays in the opposition, and the ruling party stays ruling at all times. And it's run like a company.
And so it's still the same family because what I read was like just I don't know short threads on Twitter or X, and it was like basically one person coming to it and saying like this is my plan and this is what I'm gonna do, and then he was able to make Singapore such a great place. But is it still running within the one family? Because
yes.
So far, so what we have seen throughout history, that's not usually working very well.
But in Singapore it works. Yeah, you are talking about Lee Kuan Yew, who is the founder of Singapore. He would be the Kekkonen of Singapore. And there are amazing similarities between sort of development of Finland and Singapore. Firstly, we have had a totalitarian leader. We have Kekkonen after the wars, and they had Lee Kuan Yew. Both countries are neighbors to a huge neighbor country with different political and religious system. We have Orthodox communists to the east, and they have Muslims to the north. And also, I think at that time it was a kingdom, in fact, Malaysia, and it still might even still be. And Singapore became independent from Malaysia. Finland became independent from Russia. Neither country has any natural resources. Well, Finland has some precious metals, but Singapore doesn't have even that. And both are small populations, less than 5 million at that time. So there's a lot of similarities between the countries. And both countries were sort of raised from the third world to the first world by a strong totalitarian leader. In our case, it was Kekkonen, and in their case, it was Lee Kuan Yew. But there comes the difference. Lee Kuan Yew made his son prime minister before he died, and now Lee Kuan Yew's son is running the country. Finland turned into a democracy after Kekkonen, and we have chosen a different political route. Singapore is doing economically better.
Which one do you like better?
My opinion changed when I lived there. I was a absolute Finnish Democrat before I moved there, but I'm not convinced democracy is the best way of rule a country anymore. I have seen how it works in an undemocratic way, and you get better results than you get in a democracy.
Yeah, it's one of the topics that I've been thinking about lately sometimes, and yeah, I'm not trying to become a ruler or anything, but it's just sometimes I'm like, the democracy is like it's actually pretty shitty concept. It's just I mean, the concept is good, but with the way that humans work is just nearly impossible to implement it well, I believe. And so I when I especially when I read this, like, again, very short thread on how Singapore raced so well, I was like, that works. But then I was also, yeah, that's just one crazy person born in the bloodline, and then it all goes to you know, who knows where. So it's interesting that we still didn't come up as a humanity with something that, like, works for everybody. Or
Very few people really come up with any new and original thoughts. When we are young, we have this illusion that our ideas are new and independent, and they come sort of from ourselves. But the older you get, the more you understand that almost everything you think has been thought by somebody else, and every thought you have in your head has been put there by somebody else. And history knows only of very few people who have been able to sort of really radically think in a different way. My favorite example is Adam Smith, who sort of was able to sort of conceptualize a really different economic system than that existed before that. And of course, we have religious figures like Jesus Christ, who really had a sort of revolutionary way of thinking. And maybe Karl Marx also, even though the ideas were bad, but they still came up with original thoughts that nobody else had been thinking before. But these people are like, there's just a handful of people that we know of in history that have been capable of this. And what I'm thinking is that democracy is at the moment the sort of best way, even if it's not really good, but it's the least bad governance model that we have. It results in people selecting Putin's and Trump's, but it also provides the ability to remove them. But we would need someone who would be capable of thinking new ideas, like Adam Smith. But we haven't seen any for a few hundred years. Like this neoconservatism that we have in the US with Trump, there's nothing new with this. They are just going back. So it's not this is not new, it's old thinking. But we would need somebody who would renew the entire way of thinking. But in our time, this time doesn't breed people like that. And it's very unfortunate. Of course, it's been an interesting time to be alive now, to see all the changes that have happened. But this sort of political, what would you call it, genesis, has not happened during our lifetimes.
It is interesting. It is really interesting, especially when we see how all the systems that we have so far are, like, working, but not as functionally as we would like them to. It's interesting that we. I don't even know why that would be, that we don't bring. We are not as creative as in the past, I guess.
It's not that we wouldn't be as creative as in the past. It's just that real creativity is very rare. Like we are still admiring inventors like Newton, who lived like eons ago, James Clerk Maxwell, Einstein. These are people who've been dead for decades. So these kind of people do not. They are not born even every generation. And now a generation has been misfortunate not to have anybody like that, and especially in political sciences. And which is sad. But I'd like to comment to that on the other hand, if you look at us humans, we are also very flawed. Like we get sick, we die, we behave badly. So how would the system that we create be any better than we who have created it? So
that's a very interesting thought. I mean, it is really, really sort of quote unquote funny how sort of weak we are as a species, because basically without healthcare, a single small scratch from a tree branch can kill you. So it's interesting. On the other side, we are outweighed with the brain, I guess.
Then again, as individuals, we are very weak, but as a social organism, we are very strong,
That's
and we are extremely resilient. But as individuals, we are weak. That's true.
Yeah. Adam Smith, I might shoot and miss, but that's Wealth of Nations,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. I was talking about this with Peter Final from here, and he was explaining to me that apparently Anders Chydenius came up with somewhat of the similar ideology, much like
A few years earlier.
few years earlier.
Yeah, that's true.
Just didn't get recognition because he spoke Swedish, and the I mean, yeah, at that time.
I would not be so worried about Swedish is today a very minor language, and especially in Finland it's not. But at that time, Sweden was a superpower. He was part of a Nordic superpower, and he should have been able to sort of achieve something that Adam Smith did. But for some reason, he failed. It might be that, well, he didn't fail, but he didn't make it as big as Adam Smith. It might be that it's because he was born here, up in the north.
Have you read both of those books?
No.
No. Okay. It's on my to-do plan along with a million other things.
Yeah. My knowledge about both Anders Chydenius is of course a local hero, so I know a little bit more, but it's based on my education and my school.
Yeah, that was just wanted to make clear that make sure that I'm thinking about the same.
I should have added Anders Chydenius to this list of original thinkers because, as I said, they are rare, they are few, they don't happen every generation.
Yeah, that's very much true. How would you sum up so far your career life, and how are you like?
I had this discussion today with a customer, in fact.
Really?
Yeah. My both parents died when they were 53 years old, and I'm now 54. And I've been living my entire life in a way that I expected that my lifespan will end when I'm 53. As an engineer, I calculated statistical probability and then came to the conclusion that I better live my life to the full because there's a higher than zero probability that it will end at about 53. Well, it didn't, but I did.
Which is very good.
But I pretty much achieved everything I wanted to achieve. So I had set up some goals for my life and my education, what I wanted to be. Then I had a career. I wanted to go abroad. I ended up after 7 attempts. And also I've been CEO in many companies. I've been board chairman. I've been board member. All my career objectives have been met. I'm married. I have 2 kids. Both are studying to become engineers. So I don't really have any. What happened was that I had a huge drive when I was younger to sort of perform, and sometimes I think it felt like I was burning the candle from both ends because I was sort of extremely ambitious, and now I don't really know what to do because I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve. So.
That is probably the first time I'm hearing such a thing, but this is really interesting. My father is 58. Now I'm gonna embarrass myself because I don't know my father's age, but it
about
is
the same age as me.
pretty much. And we were discussing this, and he is now a little bit slowing down because unlike you, he didn't stick with sports, so the body is taking damage already, but he's still sort of ongoing. He's now teaching and studying as well because he needs some like education paper. So and he's now already telling me like, oh man, like this time I thought I'm already gonna be retired, and now I'm making exams at school basically. But we were discussing this with him as well, and he was sort of having a similar point of view, I guess. Not with the same statistical presumptions as you, but he was also saying like, um, it has been a great joyride, and especially throughout the history that happened in within Czech Republic.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure,
he was a
for sure.
big part of that. So it's we were discussing this recently with my father, and he was basically explaining to me like after the revolution in the 90s in Czech Republic, like nothing really existed, right? Like the whole, for example, the whole financial institution had to be made basically. So
Yeah.
so they were like, he was studying economy in
How old was he at the time?
oh
That's 30 years ago, so he was 20 something.
yeah,
Yeah.
a little, I think a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
So I don't know, 25-ish, I guess. And so he was telling me that basically he was like sitting with the teachers at a table, and he was like, you see that's over here in the book? It says cash flow. Do you know what that means? Like they both with the teachers
Yeah.
were kind of like teaching each other, because up until then that was not a thing at all, because it was Western propaganda, right? And he was telling me like we were starting businesses, and then we were like making contracts, and like it was all word to word, and then somebody came up and was like, I have this paper here. It says like invoice. I don't, you know what that is? No, just throw it in the trash bin, right? So there's been a lot of sort of joyrides that he went through, and he was also telling me like, now I'm just trying to sort of settle down something that keeps me entertained.
Mm.
And but if I look at it backwards, it's just that there was stuff that I could have done better, or so, but fulfilled. So this is like an interesting sort of a thought that even though you're now starting as a like a CEO of a new coming company in a very interesting field in the solar panel industry, it's you well, maybe I should, I guess, rephrase it that I would also want to at some point get to a point in my life when I'm like looking back at my past, and I'm like, I enjoyed that, right? That was a good one. Like that's sort of one of the goals of mine. So I'm really happy for you that this is the way you can.
Yeah. Well, uh, you put me in a difficult spot here. I've just started as a CEO for a startup, and uh, I've done this a few times before, run up a company from scratch to business, and this is the place where I enjoy being all best. Like the chaos at the start, where there exists no structure, but there exists a strong vision, and everything is possible. This is where I usually thrive, and that's where I perform always the best. And I've done this so many times before that I know that this will turn out good. I have no doubts about that. But it's going to be an interesting ride from that perspective that I'm also getting older, and I'm now 54, and I'm expecting that this might, to get this company up into sort of multi-million turnover, will take a few years, 2-3 years, maybe with the industry that we are in, and then I'll be 57 years old, and I've been sort of curiously monitoring myself from the outside, that am I going to slow down? Is sort of the speed and pace and the sort of internal drive going to sort of cool down? As I said, I've reached all the goals that I had set for myself so far, but I have no interest in sort of giving up and stopping and falling down sort of on the sofa at the moment. So currently I'm looking for the joyride, maybe not so much, but for the exciting and challenging journey to continue in this startup where I'm now. And I've also learned over the years that running startups really requires a certain type of personality. Not everybody likes to be in the center of the chaos. But for me, this is the place to be.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear. How is it with the now we're getting back a little bit outside of this philosophy field to the company itself. How is it with the market? Isn't solar panels and solar energy the quite competitive market in this sort of sense?
Yeah, you have several times mentioned solar panels, but we are in fact not in the solar panel business. We are in the solar park business. And there's a sort of concept difference here. So what we do is we negotiate with landowners who want their farmland or peatland or old forests to produce something easier than farming. So we negotiate the landowner contracts or land lease contracts with the landowners, and then we design a solar park on that land. We negotiate grid connection agreements with the grid owner, then Fingrid or the local energy company, and then we apply and negotiate building permits with the local community or town. So we build the product to what we, or the project to what we call ready to build or RTB phase, which means that we have all the paperwork done, all the permits, all the plans ready, and then we sell the project to investors who then do the actual construction. So we never see the solar panels. We only see the plans. So the product that we develop is a file of documents and agreements.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I did read up a little bit. By the way, you have a quite pretty web page. That's my worst fear always when I'm looking at some company that they either don't have a web page or it's from like 170,000 years ago. So I'm quite happy that there was some information to find, but I didn't dig as deep into it. So that's very interesting. And how do the farmers react to it?
They are extremely keen on this. We get phone calls weekly on farmers who want to lease their land for this. It's a generational thing. Very often it's the previous generation that has been farming land, and the next generation doesn't know what to do with the land that they have inherited. Or then it's the previous generation who has become old and doesn't have the energy to do the farming anymore, and this is an excellent opportunity for them to get the land to produce without having to invest the time and energy in the farming.
Do you feel like it's gonna have any impact on the actual agriculture?
Well, there's a concept called agri-PV or agri-photovoltaics, where you can cultivate the land under the solar park as well, or use it for example, sheep farming. And this is something that is currently taking quite a huge steps in Europe, and we are currently probably the leader in this part of thinking in the Finnish solar park business, and we are introducing this concept to all of our landowners.
So for not as smart people like me, it's one of the concepts that you're already doing is putting solar panels on a field.
Yes.
And this would be a concept of putting solar panels on the field and still using the area for I don't know, sheep.
The solar panels are not horizontal; they are at an angle, so that means that there's a lot of space between, which is still available for agriculture.
We were also having this discussion that there is this like big push, especially from the European Union, on electromobility. Did you ever read somewhere? I don't know. I didn't really dig into it as much, but how much of the energy that is being used up on the electric vehicles is actually green?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I really don't know. But what I do know is that despite what mass media portrays, the amount of energy used by the electrification of the cars is marginal. So it doesn't really affect the grid balance or grid energy use. The big change is coming from the green shift in heating. So in Finnish district heating networks, the heat has been produced so far by fossil sources, and this is shifting very quickly into electric heat pump based heating, And this is a paradigm shift that's not, it goes unnoticed. Nobody knows about this except for the grid owners and the energy producers. And for some reason, this huge change is not visible for the public. And this is happening extremely fast. Like the consumption of fossil fuels for heating in Finland has plummeted, like drastically. And this is of course a very good thing. It reduces the CO2 emissions, and at the same time it then increases the need for electricity and energy in electrical format. Let's put it this way. And this is one reason why we favor nuclear power, but also green energy is coming in very usable for this. Of course, it supports the mobility part. I'd be happy to charge my cars with wind, and I think I do. At least I hope so. So, but I don't know how big part of the electric car population is charged by renewable. No.
Yeah, no, that was just sort of a question to
It was
the
a
air.
long way of saying I don't know.
Yeah, no. It's a very political way of saying it. No, yeah, it's just a thing. I mean, here, especially here up in the north, where the countries are a little more developed, I suppose that the margin might be a little better, but back in, I don't know, Czech Republic, or especially lower towards the east, it's probably not that good. One of the things that is really interesting to me here is that even though we are like up north in Finland here, where it's like minus 68 every day, the electromobility is in quite huge ratios in here. I was really surprised. Like when I go back to Czech, it's still like I would say 70% at least gas cars. And then I go up here and I feel like it's maybe 20% gas, 20% electric, and the rest is hybrid. It's like quote unquote really electrified here, which is really interesting to me because the batteries have to be very I mean, they have to take quite a toll here, especially in the winter. How do you feel about that? Like,
well, I don't own a fossil car anymore, so we have 2 electric cars in the family, yeah. And you lose about 50% of the battery capacity in winter. My wife drives a Nissan Leaf that has a 24 kilowatt-hour battery, and you can't leave the city of Kokkola with it in winter. But she doesn't leave the city of Kokkola because she drives to work, and she has she drives maybe 15 to 20 kilometers a day, which means that with one charge she can drive 3 days. And we charge the car by night with spot electricity, which is green, and there's no need. So it's sufficient for intracity commuting to work. I drive a Polestar which has a, I think 82 kilowatt-hour battery, and my job is 100 kilometers away from here, and I commute once a week back and forth. So far I've been able to drive to work and home with one charge, so it's a 200 kilometer back and forth drive.
Was it getting close?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet, but I can charge it at the job, so if that's needed. So new cars, the better electric cars have heat pumps, they have heated batteries, they I think well, I only have experience of these 2 cars, but both are warm in the winter, and especially, like, I have never driven as warm car as the one I drive now, because with a combustion engine car you have to wait for the engine to heat up before you get the inside of the car heated. But with an electric car, the heat pump starts immediately when you start the car, and it has a huge battery, which means that then you have the steering wheel is heated and the seat is heated when you step into the car. Huge difference. And so people have a lot of prejudices against electric cars. They believe stuff that they only believe that they don't know. I doubt anyone who, or let's put it this way, very few of people who go electric will go back. But it's a huge hurdle. You have to be some kind of a crazy early adapter to do it, even still today.
Well, I mean, so I'm on like a bring of both of those sides because I like electric vehicles quite a lot. They are super fun, especially when we were driving in your Polestar. It's always an experience. But I'm also a little skeptical from. So for me, the whole charging issue is not really an issue. Like people are, oh, but it goes only 200 kilometers. Like nobody really goes more than 200 kilometers in one go without a stop, anyways.
No.
So that's not an issue. I feel like. Though I'm not sure how is it gonna be with the durability of the cars.
Oh,
because we have gas cars or like fossil fuels based cars that are running still now after like 30 years of being out there, right? But we didn't have the time period so far to test out how long that goes, because then it's like a whole different investment if you're buying a 60,000 euro car and you know that you can drive it for, I don't know, 7 years and then you have to crash it, right? So this from this point of view, I'm a little skeptical. Do you have any?
Well, you studying engineering, you should be able to do the math. So a lithium-ion battery has a lifespan of 3,000 charging cycles, right? Mm-hmm. On average. And one charging cycle means that you charge it from empty to full. So that means from about 2% charge to 100% charge. On average, you charge an electric car, you keep it between 20 and 80%. So that means that you don't even charge it for a full cycle when you charge it. So let's say that you need to charge it 2 times to get one charging cycle. So that means that you can charge it 6,000 times, and then it has lost 20% of its capacity. This is what sort of current state-of-the-art industry analysis says of electric car batteries, pretty much regardless of the chemistry that's being used. I think lithium phosphate is probably currently that has the highest longevity. Okay, you can drive 300 kilometers with one drive. You do the math. How many kilometers do you have in a car? When is the battery dead?
A lot.
So,
yeah.
3,000 cycles, 300 kilometers per cycle. That's 900,000 kilometers. And how many cars fossil cars, do we have on the road that have 900,000 kilometers on them?
That's true. Well, then this is good. We can have this sort of a you steelman EVs, and I'll be the skeptic guy. So that's like a thing that is quote unquote on paper, right? But the same as with the mileage, it's most likely going to differ a little bit in the real world, because the same goes with the mileage. We are saying that it's like 600, but in reality at like, I don't know, 400 kilometers, right? So most likely there's gonna be some like real world affecting deterioration as well, because I mean we already use these batteries for a lot of, I don't know, devices and stuff, but how often you leave your phone every night in, I don't know, minus 15, right? And a second thing is that it's well, I mean, I'm gonna end it there and then I will continue.
Yeah, well, yesterday there was a research published by some German. It was in Helsingin Sanomat, a research done by a German research institute. They had analyzed electric cars that had minimum 200,000 kilometers on them to check the battery status. And it was really good.
Okay.
So it has. I think that's one of the strongest indicators of what happens to electric car batteries after all. So when the car is at the end of its lifespan. In Finland, we drive cars beyond 200,000 kilometers. In Germany, they don't. end of lifespan when they are 200,000 kilometers. The battery has still a lot of juice in it for being a sort of dead-end car. Other issues that are very interesting, I found out that many, in fact, both of our electric cars used regeneration for braking. So that means that when you brake, you use the engine for braking, not the brake pads. So that means, of course, that you don't have to change the brake pads so often because most of the braking is done by the electric motor. And so on and so on. You don't have to change oil. There's less moving parts. So when you go electric, very few of those who go electric will ever go back.
So far, that has been my experience as well. I have specifically one friend whose father had a Mitsubishi Outlander, I believe. That was not an electric car at all. And then, sort of for the funsies, he bought the electrical Mercedes. It's somewhat of a between of a sedan and a SUV. It's not the big SUV, but it's like those. I don't remember the names. And after that, the next car he bought was Tesla. Like he was like, "This is so much fun. This is so cool. Like I'm sticking with that." Yeah, it's
better.
The other thing that I was about to open was were the brakes, because they're substantially heavier, the cars. And that makes it, especially with the accelerations, a lot of people like to step on it and then brake a lot. So I'm not even going to the emissions of that, because there is also some, but that's definitely not as much as the petrol based cars. But is that like how long do you have the Leaf?
I think this is the second winter that we
Second winter.
Yeah,
okay.
we bought it when it had 20,000 kilometers on it. My Polestar had 34 when we bought it.
How often is it recommended to change the brakes?
I have no idea. The car wants when it wants to have service. It hasn't.
That's true. That's true. I guess. Yeah.
So there's no oil to be changed. There's no chain. What you call this valve chain to be changed. The only thing you add is this wind wiper fluid, and that's it.
And you bought it completely new or from a second-hand?
Second-hand. It had 20,000 kilometers on it.
Okay.
And both cars we bought online without seeing the car at all. And really? This is an interesting thing to maybe mention, that one of my kids' school friend's dad had a auto shop in Kokkola, which he closed down because he said that this is going to happen. He said it 5-6 years ago, and he was absolutely right. I bought both cars just from the phone and didn't pay anything. We negotiated the price. They made an offer on my old car over WhatsApp, and the car came. They brought the car home to us. They test drove my old car. I test drove the new car. We shook hands, and they took my old car away, and I was left with the new car. There's no future for these big auto markets anymore. This is how cars are going to be sold. It's of course a different issue if you have 200,000 kilometers on the car. But these both cars were practically like 1-year-old, 2-year-old cars. This is how cars are going to be bought in the future. And the more electric they become, the more the sales will be done like this.
That's touching another topic that I was about to discuss with you. You don't even know how bad I want a car. It's the worst, the biking. But I'll still have to wait a little bit. But the thing that I was about to say is that how do you feel about AI? I know we discussed this. We discussed this a little bit before already. Look, a lot of people asked me before. They were like, "You're a programmer. How do you feel about this?" Like, I feel like we are gonna be one of the first ones, like, to lose a job. The type of a programmer that I am right now, the like sort of a normal web UI, just some web application.
Well, you're a full stack programmer. I don't expect that job to disappear very soon. It's more the UI designers. Full stack programmers should have a future, so don't give up yet.
No, I'm not giving up. I'm just like sort of exaggerating it. But my point of the story is that I'm always saying, like, we, at least I feel like so, we as a community, as programmers, feel like you know, when like an office worker hears like, oh, AI and I'm gonna lose a job, they become furious, right? I feel like that we as a programming community, we're like, we are gonna lose a job. That's awesome. Like you know, we are in a very good relationship with this because 2 years ago when I was maybe a little less than 2 years ago when I was working for a startup company back in Czech Republic. I was coding in React and looking a little bit into the backend as well in Node.js, especially with the front end in the React. A lot of the code I didn't really even write. Like I just specified a prompt to ChatGPT or whatever.
And he wrote the code for you.
He threw out something. I placed it in the app, checked if it's approximately what it's supposed to be, ran it, tested it out. If it didn't work, then I handled some small details.
And any coder who doesn't do that is without a job. If you want to stay in the job, that's the way you have to do it.
But my point is, at that time it was already freaking awesome, right? And since then I didn't really use it a lot because of some security reasons. Our company now doesn't use it, which is like kind of get it. So I didn't really get to use it a lot for the past, I don't know, half a year or a year, let's say, right? Outside of my school issues. And especially now, it made huge steps. ChatGPT, I believe, also released their like a professor, quote unquote professor model, and I didn't even try to use that so far. It's in the paid subscription, I believe. So I feel like there is some sort of greatness going on in there, but everybody's really skeptical about like this sort of whole I'm losing a job type of deal. What do you think about that? About the digitalization and how where the world is moving towards in AI?
This has happened before. When the steam engine was invented, all the old hand workers who were used, especially in the textile industry in the UK, I think that was the beginning of the socialism, because the movement that was against steam engines and the sort of mechanization of hand jobs at that time. Okay, hand jobs, you know what I mean? Or manual labor, that's what I'm talking about. We're very scared, and a lot of blue collar jobs were lost because of the industrial revolution, and same thing is happening to the white collar jobs now, and it's this is how society evolves, and it's of course it has taken longer to sort of come up with technology that can sort of replace white collar jobs. Having said that, this may be different than the sort of mechanical revolution. We saw IT revolution, or something that we like to call the IT revolution, in the early change of this millennium, but AI currently for a layman is like it will pass the Turing test with flying colors. Nobody is able to distinguish AI from a real person, and it's so scary. Like the way I sort of see it, there are some very mentally challenging tasks in, for example, in my job, being a CEO. You have to sort of write a lot of contracts, and you have to review a lot of contracts. And reading a 200-page contract, especially if you have two legal systems, you have the Finnish and then you may have the UK legal system, which are pretty much different. And it's extremely difficult work. It's extremely heavy. It's like I'd rather run a marathon than do that. It's keeping that kind of sort of amount of information in your head, and all the time sort of keeping the benefits and interests of your own company in mind when you review that kind of text is probably one of the most challenging tasks. Well, solving the Schrödinger equation might be, no, it's easier than doing that. So from that point of view, when you can throw this sort of extremely exhaustive task to AI and ask it to review a document, and you get proper review notes that you can trust to 85%, is extremely helpful. But then at the same time, it will sort of reduce the amount of people who are able of doing this kind of work themselves. Because I know that every time I let AI do this kind of document reviews, and every time I let AI write contracts for me, means that I write one less, and it also means that my experience and my ability to do this kind of abstract thinking will be reduced. And this might be detrimental to the whole sort of, how should I put this sort of, there are jobs that require manual labor. You need to be very skilled in your hands to be able to perform your jobs. But then there are jobs that need you to have a sharp mind and be able to perform mentally extremely well under hard pressure. And I'm afraid this ability might be lost. And if we give this to AI, then it might be that the sharpest mind of the planet will be dulled. And then we started this by discussing about this original thinking. And AI will not come up with the original thoughts. It will only be able to do induction. It will not be able to do deduction. And at least that's what I believe it to be capable of. And that means that we will be better on what we already do. And it will help us to improve on what we already have, but it will not help us create anything that we don't yet have. And the worst outcome of this is that we will become the best version of the 2020s humans, but we will never evolve from this because AI will refine us to become the best models of this year model of humans.
That's, well, I mean, when you portray it like this, it is a little scary. But so one stream of thoughts that I was sort of listening to, let's say, was that if we like stretch it a lot, and AI would be doing basically all of the jobs, that would be capable to do all of the jobs, right? Which is something that we don't look at in the near 5 years probably. But
never say never.
Never say never. But so far it looks like. But if at some point that happens, what would basically happen to humans could be that we wouldn't sort of have to do anything throughout your day. Like you would wake up and you can do whatever you want because there is like no societal need for you to do anything, which is not a problem for you or for me because I do have stuff that I'm interested in and I would do. I don't know, reading books or physics or whatever, or doing some research on something, right? But there is an enormous amount of people who don't strive for excellence, or who don't want to achieve something over the minimum limit of what is required. And what happens to those when there is no need? Sorry?
When they become redundant.
Yes, when there is no need for them to be part of this.
And do we have a society that's prepared to pay for their welfare at that moment?
Well, if the whole basic structure would be handled by AI, and now if we actually stretch it, like even the politics would be handled by AI, for example, right? So technically it should.
So the social politics would be taken care of by AI as well.
Yeah. So basically, the only need for us as humans would be just to be creative and just to do whatever you feel like being fun doing, right? But then there is like, I don't know, 60-70% of the population who are people who are just like, today I wake up, I go to work, I do that for 8 hours, then I go home, crack a beer and watch football, right? So what do these people do?
I think we have examples of that already. We have societies which have evolved to almost that state. Korea, Japan, and the Nordic countries are slowly coming to a state where you, if you don't have to work, or if you don't want to work, you really don't have to, because the society will take care of you. And standard of living has risen extremely high. And what happens is that fertility rates drop. People stop having kids. Like Koreans don't have kids at all anymore, and Japanese also not. So I'd expect what would happen in that case is that the fertility rates would drop further, and we would die. We would go extinct. And there would be a very small population of people, and at the end this would be a mechanized society where AI would be the only living organism.
That's a scary thought.
So we don't need Skynet, or we don't need sort of Matrix where we are harbored like batteries in some virtual reality. We will kill ourselves if we don't have a reason to live by not procreating.
That is scary to me, at least.
It's happening.
But
It's happening.
Finland's fertility rates are also going down. I believe it's
1.43.
Oh, it's 4.3. Okay. Yeah. So it's not the greatest either. I mean,
And the higher the standard of living is, the lower the fertility rates are. And with AI taking care of social policy, we would have higher standard of living everywhere. So why would this not change? So why would we not die out in extinction?
Do we know, or can you at least take a guess why is that the better the society performs, the lower the fertility rate?
I've seen some YouTube interviews on with young couples, in Asian couples, that why they don't want to have kids, and it's not. I have not been able to comprehend the sort of arguments. Many of them talk about of uncertain future, and many of them talk about not being willing to limit their life options, and I it's difficult to grasp. I have 2 kids, so for me this sort of discussion is abstract and almost on the brink of absurd. But we also know that in countries with low standard of living, they have lots of kids, and not, it doesn't necessarily have to be as bad as you have to have many kids as a solution for social security, that the kids will take care of you, but it's inversely correlated to sort of the standard of living, and it might be that. I'm not a social scientist, so I don't know, but it's a strange phenomenon.
It is weird. I was discussing this with my friends. They are Hungarian, and apparently in Hungary, you can take a mortgage with like a quote unquote discounted mortgage if you promise to deliver a certain amount of kids. So, and it's to some quite, I don't wanna, I don't know the numbers from the top of my head, but it's some quite extreme numbers, like I don't know, 60% of the loan is forgotten when you promise to have 2 kids, right? Which at the first I heard it, I was like, that's awesome. Like, what do you mean? Then we were discussing it a little further. There is issues because you actually have to do that. So there is no, like, if you say I'm gonna have 2 kids, you have to have the 2 kids. It's not like you're gonna come and like, oh, sorry, I'm not for then you have to adopt them or something. I don't know. We were so that there is like the way that it's made in Hungary is not really the best. But like taking that idea, I was like, why don't we do that as like especially well-developed countries?
Well, does it work in Hungary?
Not. I don't actually really know. I would have to take a look.
I don't think it works. I think they have an extremely low fertility rate in Hungary as well. I'm not sure. I don't have the statistics, but I am under the opinion. I have this feeling that all these sort of government subsidies seldom work.
Well, that might totally be true. I'm not sure. I didn't look into the
You
issue.
may want to do a background check before publishing this and check how the Hungarian fertility rate has changed after the introduction of these policies.
Yeah, I will try to take a look into that, I think. But but anyways, my point of the why I'm saying this is that like developed countries do have issues with fertility rates.
Yes.
Why not to support it? Like they need the people anyways. Like as when you want to grow.
We have huge social support for in Finland. Like you get all kind of, if you have a kid, you get until the kid is 16 years old, you get every month you get money from the government, tax free. They have free healthcare. You get all kind of subsidies for having kids, and still.
Yeah, but that's an interesting issue. About that, definitely think that.
So how about you? When are you planning to have kids?
When well,
So-
I was discussing this with several people already. If I would have the money, I'm doing them tomorrow. But the thing is that, especially for me as a student, when I live from month to month, it's like a brutal world of uncertainty that I cannot really bring.
This is what the Asian youth are saying as well.
But I am definitely planning on having at least 2-3 kids.
Have you told your girlfriend?
Yeah, we were discussing this actually, and I think we sort of settled down on 2. Don't worry, we will. 3 I think is a little
Good luck.
better, but I cannot tell her yet.
Yeah.
But and I'm also, I don't want to wait too long. I don't want to be like 35 when we are starting. I would like to start a little sooner because I want to have the energy to take care of the kids a little bit.
Yeah, I
But
think
again-
the best age is 17 when you don't sleep at all.
Yeah.
So that's when you should have your kids.
I was really dumb when I was 17. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
the
if
kids
that is.
are also dumb, but when they are very small.
I guess
so.
so. Well, anyways, point being that I would actually like if I knew that I'm financially able to withstand it, I would probably start much sooner. But now I'm trying to build the financial stability for myself, even not even talking about her, not even talking about kids. So for me, it personally, it's the financial the financial state of this is the issue. But again, if I would be a multimillionaire right now,
But not
I'm
many of
hav-
us are.
I'm having 6 of them, right?
Yeah.
But well, I mean, take a look at the Elon.
Yeah, but he's a bad example.
Yeah.
We should have a solution to make average people with average jobs have at least 3 kids. Then then AI could come. But with the current trend at 1.4 kids,
it's not good.
and
It's
AI is
not
going
good.
to kill us. Not AI, but we are going to kill ourselves.
Yes,
Because of AI if this happens.
that's very much true, and it's quite sad to think about that.
And think about it even this way, that what if we are the only intelligence in the universe? That there's no other, in this whole wide universe, this would be the only place where life happened, because it's so improbable that it might even be likely that we are the only intelligence. And then we create artificial intelligence, and then we kill ourselves because of it. Like the scale of strategy that this is sort of incomprehensible.
It is. Well, that's one of the things, right? We are either the only ones, or there is enormous amounts of intelligent lives, and both of these thoughts are very scary.
Yeah, I think that the scariest one is this dark forest theory, which I really. So, are you familiar with it?
No, I don't think so.
So the theory goes so that every intelligence in universe is afraid of every other intelligence in universe, and because you have this far long distance between the civilizations, game theory comes in play. So I have to think about you, that will you destroy me if I communicate with you, and I don't know anything about you. So is it worth me taking contact with you with the risk that you are so much more advanced than me that when you come you will walk over me? So I choose not to. And if anyone dares to open their mouth, I will destroy them if I can. And this is the dark forest theory, and this would explain the sort of the silence, that we are still so unadvanced or low civilization that we still broadcast everything in the universe, telling about our location, and only when we get advanced enough we understand that we should shut up because there are bigger guys there that will come and kick our asses if we keep shouting out.
That is scary that we still to this day we just broadcast like, hey, we are here, and we are not even able to get to another planet.
Luckily, this is not the only theory about why universe is
Yeah,
silent.
yeah, that's we shouldn't be as
But if we go back to this, taking the probability that we are alone, I think this AI is scary in that sense that it would kill and annihilate the only sort of light of civilization in the history of the universe, which is
it is the ethical way of the AI having an impact on civilization tends to be very scary. It's well, I mean, we'll see ourselves very soon, I believe.
I think
How
our generation will see if this is going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be very, very soon.
So then, what can we do about it? I think regulation is the only thing that can help, and AI is a worse threat than nuclear weapons, and we have been able to keep nuclear holocaust from happening for 50 years, 60 years, and I think most likely AI will end up under similar regulation once we get a couple of disasters happening and huge accidents. Then regulation will come in.
I don't know. Is that possible even? Like, I mean, we see Europe trying to take steps in this direction to regulate the AI at least a little bit. But that's exactly the case that the other nations are gonna be like, yeah, we are gonna regulate it as well. But in the meantime, they're just gonna keep developing it.
Have you been to China?
Not yet.
Try to use YouTube, Google, or any Western media. It's not possible. They have been able to regulate all the giant players in the West out of their internet.
Yeah, I don't doubt that whatsoever. But when there is, especially with AI, when there is a military potential, I believe that that's something that especially place like China or North Korea is not gonna want to regulate as long as they see some future possible benefit.
How about chemical and biological weapons? We have still been able to contain them, even if they are superior on the battlefield. So and I think and also these nuclear treaties are based on mutual understanding that if we engage in a nuclear conflict, it will annihilate everybody. And once we gain that understanding of AI, I think the regulation will happen.
I'm not sure how it works right now if we still do build atomic bombs, but we do have a regulation, but the development never stopped, right? So we are sort of having a very, very angry Rottweiler in our cage. We're just saying like, okay, for now we keep it locked, otherwise it's gonna just
we are never going
rip
to
us
kill
all
it.
apart.
We are not going to kill the Rottweiler. It will stay there.
Which is a thing that like the well, I don't want to say that the AI thinks, but it's definitely much smarter than an atomic bomb, right? So if we keep developing it, saying like, let's try to restrain it, and even how that really looks, like, are you gonna tell the AI, okay, please don't kill us? Like, that's, I don't know, it is restriction, I guess, but you know, I feel like if we want to avoid this like existential crisis within AI, the only way to do it is to restrain the speed of the development of it, which has not been the case, for example, with atomic bombs. So I'm a little skeptical about this. I believe that we should be able to rather adjust to it, or maybe my way of thinking is that inevitably we'll be integrating machinery into our bodies because of its like superior endurability and probably this like, why would I want to have glasses that can show me some stuff that I need them to show when I can have eyeballs that do that, right? So I feel like this is the way to go, I guess. but then there is the other question: to which extent do we do it until we just flip fully on into robots? I guess.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question. Would this situation where we as biological humans go extinct and are replaced by AI, could it be seen from an outsider just like one step in evolution? Like AI is just the next step of the evolution. It's no longer a biological life form, but it's a binary or digital life form. And development would then continue, except we are no longer there, but this AI would continue like we did continue for millions of years.
Well, technically, we as a humans are also just like a casing for something. We call it the soul or
Cognition, yeah.
so would it be possible that this is our next step if we are able to reproduce the way of thinking of a human in such a great form that it basically, I don't want to say pushes us out, but it kind of replaces us in a way that it's like a superior way, superior being developed out of us, basically.
We have had this discussion before, and I asked you that about this Turing test and how that is AI really conscious. And I recall you saying that AI only sees statisticalities between words, and it puts words after each other based on statistical rules that it has learned after this big data that it has on mostly internet-based text. But the question is, how does that differ from the way we are going to this discussion?
Yeah.
Like how am I producing this text that I'm producing? If not exactly like that, I have a huge database, 54-year-old database in my head of words and text and talk, which I use to statistically produce this text that I'm producing with my mouth. So am I any different from a large language model?
So that's basically what my point is, that like if we are saying it's gonna replace us, but isn't it just us? Like, isn't it just gonna become us?
Yeah, well, or are we going to become AI?
Yeah.
Which way does it go? I see, if you look at it from the evolutionary point of view, then we would evolve into a binary or digital form. And then that would be considered just one step of evolution.
See, such a happy result of our deep thinking. Yeah, I have a question back again to sort of business. How is there anything that you are like throughout your experience, you raised up quite a bit of companies above the sea levels, so to say, and is there anything that you can see that the companies tend to do as a mistake, or like, so I'll historians say we can see that we are as humanity doing the same mistakes all over again. Is that something in business that you see, that you come to a company and they're like, oh, please, we need help with I don't know, our financial status, and you're like, oh, this again?
Yeah, I do. Yes. Leadership is extremely difficult. It's like, I was referring to the Schrödinger equation, and I think that this is on par with quantum physics to be able to do a good leadership job. Maybe one of the sort of key learnings I've been mostly doing with after leaving Nokia, which was a big multinational company. I've been dealing with small and medium-sized enterprises and startups and scale-ups. And there's this idea that I've got. It's not my own idea, but I read it from somewhere that we humans are socially adapted to an environment where we know everybody we are dealing with, and from our mental capability, most humans are capable of keeping track of about 100 people in your sort of surroundings. Then you know everybody and you know what they do. And when it goes about that, then because of mental limitations, you are not able to maintain a relationship with people over 100 people. And I think Gore Technologies has a rule that they split up every startup once they reach 100 people. They split it up into companies that are 50 people and grow them then separately.
Sorry, who?
Gore Technologies.
Okay.
And it's an American family, Al Gore's company or group of companies. Mm-hmm. And it's based on this fact that if you want to keep sort of an organic organization where everybody knows each other, where you sort of have well, if you think about a submarine or a boat, this is sort of the optimal amount of people. Then you only need one leader, and you can run the whole show with only one superior. Then when you apply this fact that for this to run with one level of management, you can get to about 100 people. And then when you look at this from small and medium-sized enterprises perspective, typically in Finland that means that you reach about 10 million euros turnover, and then you end up having to grow over 100 persons. And that means that then the leadership model has to change from the leader managing everybody separately, sort of in everything that they do, to that you have to have at least 2 levels of leadership, where you have a leadership team that then splits the organization into smaller teams. And this is where Finnish companies, family companies and startups fail very often. The same person who has run the company from 1 million to 10 million is not the same person who runs it from 10 million to 100 million. And that's why we have a lot of family companies that stagnate at about 10 to 15 million and never grow. And I've seen this happen many times. And the solution to this is for the existing CEO to step out and hire somebody from the outside who is not limited by the sort of traditions and the models that have worked in the smaller scale, and who's able to scale it up to higher volumes. And this is extremely difficult, because if you grow a company from 0 to 10 million, you love the whole thing, it's your baby. You know everyone in the company as your own family members. You care for everybody in the company like your own family members. There's a huge hurdle to step out, leave all of this behind. And then especially if you hire someone else to do it, then to sort of keep hands off this, because the management will be different, the leadership will be different, the strategy will be different. So everything that you have built will be destroyed when you hire a new guy to scale it up. And Finns are not good at this. Only few companies succeed here. And this is maybe the one mistake I've seen, because I've been dealing mostly with companies in this size. Now I'm in an interesting situation, because now the founder of the company I just joined scaled the company to 1 million, and then he stepped aside, and now he hired me, and I'm now supposed to bring this up to the sort of 10 million size. So will I be then able to step out when that moment happens, or am I just preaching empty words? That's time will show. Time will show. So this is one thing: is that you can't lead a company over 100 persons in the same way as you have led it during the growth phase. This is one. What else could I say? Trust is so essential. It is so essential. If the team has trust to the leader, or trusts the leader, and the leader trusts the team, then everything works. But if there is no trust, it becomes hell. And I have experience of both cases. And the key task of a leader is to create this trust in the organization, so that the organization can run on its optimal level. When the trust happens, then the leader's advice will be adhered to. There will not be questioned because you have trust, and then that also creates respect on both ways. And I think this trust and respect are things where things also I have seen things go wrong. You don't have enough of trust and you don't have enough of respect inside the organization. Those are maybe the two, this growing the organization and then misunderstanding the role of trust and respect in the organization.
Would you have any advices to young, innovative people trying to start business? No.
Bear this in mind that the same skills and same methods and same people that grow business from 1 to 10 million cannot do the same thing from 10 to 100 million. They are different people. You can still own the company, of course, but if you create a startup and you see that now it's starting to fall apart, you can't keep control over it. That's a good sign that now you need to step aside and hire someone else to run. That's my advice.
That's very interesting. Did not hear that before. That's interesting. Valuable information. I will have to think about that a little bit. But not that I don't agree. It's just that it's a quite a new concept, so to say. And one more thing that I wanted to ask was how is it with you in sport? Because you're my coach in judo, and how did you go about being in like higher managerial positions in fast-paced companies, sometimes even as a CEO, and in combination in sport? Like, did the sport help you, or did you just didn't have time for it, or how did it go?
The average black belt, the most common job for a judo black belt is CEO.
Really?
Yeah, I think I read that from somewhere that they correlate very strong. And so typically a black belt is at least upper management, if not CEO. And what is it? Well, to achieve in judo, 1 out of 1,000 who start judo ever reach black belt level. I think it's even less, because most who start quit, and of those who continue, only a few reach that level. And what is needed to reach black belt level in judo is persistence. Absolute persistence. You don't need to be talented. I'm not talented at all. And you don't need to be athletic, but you need to be extremely persistent. You need to come to class 2-3 times a week, endlessly, every week, all the time. And then suddenly you will find that the skills that you were missing, they appear. The talent that you may be lacking will be replaced by experience and skill. But if you don't come, if you only come when it's fun, you will never reach black belt. And I think this applies also, like what Janne told me, Jorma, you don't try enough. And that was to me a kicker in the balls, really. Like I understood that in same thing applies in business. You need to be persistent. You need to show up. You need to perform. You may fail. Like in judo, you'll be choked out and you will be thrown badly and you may get injured. But you need to step up, recover, then you come back. And same applies to sort of, if you want to reach a high level in work, setbacks never can sort of cause you to stop. They may give you a sort of a reason to step outside for a while, but you always have to come back. And if you do that, you typically you perform quite well in your career, and also you may end up with a black belt in a martial art. So I think that they correlate. Yes, they do.
this is one thing that I'm trying to like preach to people around me, that in my personal opinion, for a healthy and successful life, in my opinion, of course, the three sort of cornerstones. And in successful, I don't mean that. I don't mean successful in a way of owning businesses and being a multimillionaire. In successful, I mean being like happy with who you are and what you're doing. I feel like there is three sort of cornerstones of such life, which in my opinion are sleep, nutrition, and sports. I feel like these three are the most important things for you to be feel good and be able to perform. And sleep, in my opinion, is the first, food the second, and sports the third. And sleep and no matter how I emphasize it, people, especially young people, don't really believe in it. Like 6 hours is enough. But nutrition, the same thing. Like people underestimate it so bad. So many young people around me are like every single day, like, oh, I'm so tired and I didn't sleep well. And I'm like, oh, what did you drink? What did you eat? Like,
Yeah.
I can just show me what did you eat throughout the day, and I can tell you exactly why you're not feeling good today and why you're not gonna feel good tomorrow. And the third one. So these first two are usually a thing that I argue about with younger people, but sports is a thing that I heavily argue about with older people, usually, and it's so underestimated. My I was a very sporty kid. I was doing football. I tried basketball a little bit as well. Judo, I did quite a lot competitively as well. But then I stopped when I was around 15. I was still fairly sporty. Like when we had a PE class or going to play some football with my friends, I was always down for it and I was always going out. But I didn't really do any sports. Now I came back. I came to Finland, and I started doing judo under you again, and I started to go to the gym a lot, and I started to live a healthy lifestyles, keeping track of my sleep, food, and exercise, and especially with the exercise, it mentally helps me so much. Like I wouldn't be not nearly able to withstand as much pressure and stress as I am because of sports. Like if I wouldn't do any sports, I would most likely half a year ago already crumble apart and go back to Czech and just not make it. And I feel like that's a thing. That's a thing that people underestimate so badly. Uh, I'm just always. It's just when you do sports, and it doesn't have to be like you don't have to do judo. It's
But preferably.
preferably judo, of course. Preferably in Kokkola Budo Club, but it can be just like going for a walk every day, or just going for a swim, or like everybody has to find what they like a lot, and that just helps with everything because it's hard to do sport. It's not easy. It's not as easy as watching the TV. And when you do one thing that's hard, the rest is just so much easier. Like everything feels so much easier. And then the second thing about the sport is exactly what you say, in my opinion, is that this, and I see in myself and on my generation, that this lack of discipline that we have is something that the sport helps, especially martial arts in general, because you are gonna become okay, but you're never gonna become good if you don't actually do it. And one of my coaches, I told you already, in Czech Republic, I did a soinagi, a throw, and he was like, "That was good. Do it one more million times, and you'll be actually good at it." Right? And that's a thing that stuck to my mind since then. Is like we have to do the things we have to like keep on doing, and this is what I feel like is the reason why a lot of black belts are in high managerial positions, because I mean, I did not know about that statistic, but I 100% believe it, because this sort of dedication and discipline that comes with it is just absolutely essential in life.
I couldn't agree with you more. like sleep, nutrition, and sports, and it's in that order as well. Like all the, of course, when you're younger, you can manage with less sleep. Then comes a period of life when you have a feeling you don't get enough of sleep, and now I'm in sort of the time when I can't sleep. So I sleep 7 hours, and I haven't used the alarm clock for a long time. I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, and I can't sleep even if I try. And I get 7.5 hours, and it seems to be enough. Nutrition, I could talk hours, but let's put it this way, that most of the stuff that people eat today is pure shit.
It's so garbage.
It's so, cut out the sugar, start with that, and try to stay without sugar for 2 weeks, and then take a piece of chocolate in your mouth, and then think about the addictiveness and what it does. It's like, well, let's not go there, but pay attention to what you eat, and then the sports.
We still have time if you want to.
Yeah.
We can go there.
Yeah,
I don't mind at all.
Yeah, I'd say that this we got these new recommendations, health or food recommendations from the Finnish health national health, and what, I don't know what it's called in English, but the most interesting part of this was they didn't mention sugar at all in the recommendations. There was not a single word about sugar. And if you think about sugar in general, sugar, what does it cause? It causes diabetes. It causes caries. Your teeth are going bad. It's the main energy source for most cancer forms. Almost every sort of disease that we currently have is in some way related to sugar. And
highly disbalancing your daily energy levels. There is just so much to
diabetes, all what you, and not a single word. So something is wrong with these recommendations. But if you cut out sugar, I think that's the best decision you can do in your life. And then after that, cut out alcohol. And then I think then you should be quite okay. But then when it comes to this sport, I think, okay, let's talk about this. That all these fast foods should be banned. Fast foods. I'm a strong proponent of slow food. Like you should cook for a long time. You should put your soul into the food making. I have a casserole in the oven at home right now, waiting for me to come home. You should put your soul in the food when you make it, and then when you enjoy it, you should understand that this is someone's soul who is in this food. So when you eat it, you should treat the food with respect for the person who made it, and you should eat it in a way that you respect the body that you put it into. And this somehow has sort of, with this fast food and the garbage that we eat, we have lost the respect for the chef who made the food. We have lost the respect for the pig who gave his life for us to be able to eat. And we have lost the respect for our own body where we put this garbage into. So the whole concept of eating is destroyed. So cook slow, eat slow, enjoy slow. And with this alcohol, take a glass of wine with the food if it does help you to eat for a longer period of time. Enjoy the whole thing. It's mentally better. It's physically better.
I feel like we could note on this topic for a long time, because I believe it's the German equivalent of WHO. They are recommending, I believe, 30 grams of sugar maximum. A daily intake of a full-grown human being, 30 grams of sugar, which includes sugar that is in bread, sugar that is in fruits, sugar that is in beverages. So all the sugar,
Yeah.
even the one that you daily don't notice. And there is a lot, like pasta has sugar in it, for example, right? There's like stuff that you don't even consider having sugar in. So
Mustard.
mustard, yeah, everything. Well, everything, quote unquote. But and then there was a second statistic that I believe that an average American, though not very far from the Europeans, they consume about, I believe it was 107 grams of sugar a day. So it's more than triple the amount that is recommended to do. And just for a reference, a normal 300 milliliters can of Coke, the just basic Coke that you can buy in a store for, I don't know, $2. The 300 milliliters can of Coke has, I believe, 32 grams of sugar. So with just one can of Coke, you're exceeding the maximum level of sugar you should intake. Now, why am I saying this? Is that I believe that there is everything should be in balance. There is nothing that you can do like overly, that you can do too much of, that still is good for you. No matter what it is, if you're gonna say like I'm gonna eat vegetables because it's healthy, if you eat too much vegetables, it's just not gonna be good for you.
If you only eat vegetables,
yeah, exactly. So there has to be moderation to everything, and like cutting all of the sugar out is good, but it's hard, and people are usually not mentally able to do that. But like, we'll eat a cookie, but eat just one. Like one cookie has, I don't know, 5 grams of sugar. It's still bad.
You can eat only one cookie, but most of us will eat a second and a third.
That's the thing, yeah. And the same goes with the alcohol. Like, you don't have to completely. If it's better for you if you don't drink any alcohol, of course. But it's okay to go and get drunk once a month, or maybe once per 2 months. But just you cannot drink every single day. That's just, and not even talking about how much sugar is in alcoholic drinks, right? And so I'm very much on this train with you that
if we think about this sugar, I've cut out all sugar. I don't eat sugar at all, and I've replaced it with artificial sweeteners. And this causes always a controversial discussion that people say that they cause cancer. But if you can replace this 107 grams of sugar daily with about 2 milligrams of aspartame, I wonder which part of this is going to be more detrimental to your health. So if instead of eating this aspartame, I'd consume this 107 grams, I'd get all those, from diabetes to all those other diseases. So I've made the conscious choice that no sugar. I use sweeteners when I want something sweet.
And have you tried stevia?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because that is, I believe, the only
fully natural,
and
but
honey, I guess.
But honey has a lot of carbs, so it's not good.
Yeah.
But my argument is so that both are dangerous, but the more dangerous one is sugar. So if I have to choose, I choose the less dangerous alternative. But if this discussion will go on until the morning, I'd like to touch upon this sport part as well. And I think that the key to this sport is this persistence and longevity. You have to be able to do this a lot. And like if you want to, for example, lose weight or control weight with sports, it's in practice impossible. It's not realistic to expect that you would lose weight by sports, and that's something I'd like to stress, because nobody who is in the working life can engage in sports for 6 hours daily, which is what you need to sort of. So you have to control your weight by the nutrition how you eat. Sports is for maintaining physical health, not for weight control. And if you want to maintain physical health, then you need to do it frequently, almost daily, preferably daily, several times a week at least. And that means that for this to succeed, the sports that you engage in has to be extremely motivating. And then may it then be that you do weightlifting and you compete in weightlifting, it's okay. If you run long distance, it's okay. But you need to find the sports that keeps you motivated, not for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, but for 20, 30, 40 years. And for me, judo has been this. I've been doing this for over 40 years, and every time I go there, I'm excited to go, and every time I learn something new. And I think this is the key to sort of getting this sports as a key part of your life is to find a sport that becomes your passion. And well, this passion applies to a lot of many other things in life as well, but especially in sports, if you can sort of find passion in what you do, then you can do it lifelong. And for me, judo has become the passion. I once told my wife that if I would do all the work for us and we wouldn't have to do any work, I would do judo all day. I would not do anything else. I would just do judo. But unfortunately, I can't do that. So I do it as much as I can. For me, it has become a passion. And it even after 40 years, I still feel like a beginner. Every competition I go to, I win and I lose, and every loss I take as a learning experience.
Congratulations, by the way, to your competition in Oulu.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a great success, but I won one fight though. So yeah, and so for the sports to work, so you get your physical abilities to make it, you need to have a sport that you're passionate about. I had a discussion today with one of my business partners about. He's in fact the guy you could interview. I'll give you his name.
I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, who is. We had a long discussion. We were in fact negotiating a deal, but then we started discussing this. That when we get older, we will lose muscle mass, and especially the last 10 years of your life, you sort of. It's very difficult to sort of gain more muscle mass. So one of the most important things you should do during your life is to maintain your muscle health. So that the last 10 years you are not sitting in a wheelchair or in a bed, but you have muscles so that you can still walk and be physically active. And this is important for us middle-aged, especially like in my age. I should start lifting. Judo is not enough. I should start building muscle. And in order also to beat you, but not only for that. But I noticed it in my fights in Oulu. I had 2 fights in sort of general class and 2 fights in the veteran class, and the difference is huge. I'm weaker than my opponent, so this also is important that you have competition that gives you motivation to train more, train harder, and. Sports has to be passionate. It can't be an instrument for something. If you do sports to reach another goal, then you will not do it for life. But when you find a sport that you are passionate for, then you can keep on doing it until you're dying dead.
I feel like this is something that generally goes for everything. You have to have a goal for something. You cannot do something just because. I feel like that it cannot ever become enjoyable if you don't have a greater purpose or greater goal behind the activity. So I mean, I'm doing studies not because everybody's doing studies, but because I want a diploma, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to gain some knowledge in a specific field, and I want to have a business because I want to do something greater good in some other sense. But in every sort of way, we have to have a goal, and I do agree that especially in sports, it's really important that a lot of people do sports just because they heard somewhere that it's good to stay fit, but it helps when the sport has a goal. Like I don't know if you like running. I don't know how is that even possible to like running, but people do it apparently. I absolutely hate it, but if you like running, just set yourself a goal. Like I want to run 100 kilometers at some point in my life. Just slowly work towards that goal. That is true. How about your sailboating?
Sorry. Yeah, let's come back. There's one more point I'd like to make about this, but let's then go to ice sailing. The belt system in judo is extremely good. I've heard people say that the belt is there to keep your trousers up, or the belt is there to keep your key on. This I dislike. I don't like that. The whole judo belt system is developed by a professor in pedagogy, a teacher. It's aimed to motivate kids, but it motivates also adults very well. And the belt system gives you always a goal. Like it's in practice, it's impossible to get the 10th done in judo, because by the time you get the 10th done, you're already dead. So that means that you always have the next belt to aim at. And for someone to say that the belt is there to keep the trousers up, they have misunderstood the whole point of the belt system. I'm extremely proud of my belt. I've worked my ass off to get it, and it has motivated to get this far, to stay fit and to be able to compete at 54 years old. And I'm still practicing for my next belt. And this is part of keeping goals. So the belts in judo help. They are not the only motivator. Of course, the motivator is to learn and to throw and choke out as many people as I can. But the belt part is one part of this motivation all around. And it is one of the reasons why judo works so well and why martial arts work so well, because they have this belt system. So a belt is more than just keeping your trousers on in martial arts.
Oh, definitely. I never heard that from anyone, and I wouldn't agree either.
No. But then ice sailing.
How does that even become a hobby? Like I didn't, because we didn't really talk about this very much before.
No.
You mentioned it, but I didn't really, I don't know, paid attention or understood or. And now when I was quote unquote doing a background check, I was like, oh, that's ice sailing.
Yeah, I don't sail on soft water. I sail on hard water.
That's
only
incredible. So how does that work? How do you get into that sport, and like how does the competition work? And
Finnish DN Ice Sailing Association arranged the World Championships in 1998, and my wife and I was watching sport news on TV, and my wife said that this is something we could do, and so I built two rudimentary and basic ice yachts, and that's how it started. She sailed one winter, but she requires sunshine, no snow on ice, perfect wind, and so forth, which happens only once a winter. So she stopped. I continued, and one thing led to another. I sailed the DN ice yacht class, which is the most widely spread ice yacht. It's a one-person yacht where you sail on your back. Top speeds are about 150 kilometers an hour, and the next regatta is next weekend. And I do a lot better in judo than in ice sailing. So we have European and World Championships sailed about 150 to 200 participants in those bigger regattas. These national regattas have 20 participants in them.
And where usually those take place?
On ice. Yes. So
like do you go on lakes or sea only, or
both?
Okay.
So the system works so that the dates for the regattas are agreed on in the autumn meeting in September. So the weekends are set beforehand, and then we agree which sailing club is then responsible for finding the ice. And then the sailing club does the ice scouting, and on Thursday or Friday before the actual regatta, the venue is announced. And then everybody goes to that selected venue. So you don't know on Wednesday yet where you're going to sail on the weekend.
Really?
Yeah. And then those who arrange the regatta are responsible for making sure that there's accommodation and safe ice. And then we go, and this is how it works. Even the World Championships work like this. So, and people come from all over the world to sail like this. And we have 6 regattas plus Finnish championships every winter, and typically we sail 5 or 6 of those.
So you're a part of a club. That club has the boats. You don't, or is it called the boat? Or
just ice boat or ice yacht. Yeah.
Okay. And the club owns them. You just
no, we have own yachts, but we do have a club. But
Okay.
But they are personal.
All right. That must not be cheap, right?
No.
Okay, and how far is it that you? Well, maybe to that question, what is the like typical price range from like a cheap entry level yacht and maybe like a middle or
Yeah, a
professional?
D&I yacht that you can sail with, and you can sort of do some Sunday sailing when the weather is nice, costs you about 2,000 euros. You get runners and one or two sails and a mast and a plank. If you want to compete, it's about 10,000 euros. You need several runners, you need 3 sails at least, and then you need composite masts, and they are quite expensive. So from 10,000 up, and I have not bought my yacht in one go. This is something I've invested over the years. So what I crashed my yacht now in the World Championships, and this time I got it fixed for about 1,000 euros. So 2,000 for a basic yacht, you can't compete with that. You will not. And then from 10,000 around up.
And what is the sort of distance that you have to travel usually? Like, I mean, what is like the maximum that, because it's really interesting that you say that on Wednesday you don't know where you're gonna be on the weekend. Like, I wouldn't be very happy if they told me to be, I don't know, in Oslo.
Yeah, well, we sail our national regattas in Finland, so we don't go abroad for that. And the climate in Finland is such that the lakes in Lapland freeze first, and then within 2 weeks after that, all the lakes in Finland are frozen. So we start the season from the north, and then we come south as the winter proceeds. Open sea starts freezing in January, then we move over to open sea, and then in spring we may end up on some lakes again. But typically the last regattas are sailed on the last sea ice. Sea ice is not as fast, it has salt, so these inland ices are faster, it's nicer to sail on them. Typically, we had the last regatta was in Salla. What was it for me? I drove 400 kilometers. They came from Helsinki, it's almost 700-800 kilometers. Longest distance I have driven has been to Balaton in Hungary, 2,400 kilometers one way for a world championship.
That is extreme.
It's an extreme sport in many ways, yes.
I would love to try that once. How does the yacht or the ice boat work? So do you have like some sort of 3 blades and
yeah, they are called runners.
Runners.
Yeah,
all right, that's okay.
Yeah.
That makes
so it has 2 blades in the back and then 1 in the front, and the front one is steered by a tiller, tiller, and it's a dynamic thing. So the plank is flexible. It's under the yacht, and it's tuned to the weight of the skipper. So you need to have the flexibility has to be stiff enough so that it doesn't touch the ice, but it should be flexible enough that it bends under the skipper. And mast is also tuned to the skipper's weight. So in modern ice yachting, the mast takes all the gust, so you don't get a lot of lifts, and so that you don't tilt the yacht. And this leads to higher speeds because the mast bends and the plank bends. So you can take high gusts and turn them into speed, which was not possible earlier when we had 3 masts and aluminum masts. But for the last 15-20 years, all masts have been composite masts, and the speeds have increased a lot because of this.
What is the average speed that you go by?
80 to 100 kilometers an hour.
Whoa!
In competition.
Isn't that dangerous a little bit?
Yes, it is. But surprisingly, most accidents happen at low speeds. And it has to do with actual sailing, because when you can't sail in sort of downwind with an ice yacht, because you always have to be in some kind of side wind for it, because if you sail with the wind, you can only move as fast as the wind moves, but when you sail across the wind, you can achieve 7 times wind speed, so it's a lot faster going sideways than straight. But when the wind slows down, you can't anymore do it with one move like this, but then you have to sort of do a lot of maneuvers across the area, and that's when collisions happen, because
Okay.
So the fast, higher winds, no collisions, it's just great fun and extremely fast and very scary.
That is a scary thought. Well, that is something that I have to take a look at because that sounds really fun.
When we get ice here, I'll give you a ring so you get to test. I have a side wagon to my yacht. I won't let you sail it because
No. I wouldn't
yeah.
even dare to. I
Yeah.
believe that's probably quite not easy.
No, and these modern ice yachts, when they are trimmed for competition, they are extremely difficult to sail. So because they speed.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. But so then in a competition it works similar way as windsurfing, right? Because I was trying to windsurf a couple of times. I mean, I did a little bit, I guess. And it's the sort of same thing that you have to like go kind of zigzag with the wing.
Yeah, well, in
Full prop.
if you have more than 4 meters per second, you only do one tack,
Okay.
and so it becomes this kind of quadratic.
Okay.
And half of the you start by running upwind, then you jump into the yacht. Those who start with starboard tack have to tack once more than these who got started with starboard, and then you turn once around and then 3 laps around in counterclockwise after that. And first in winds. It's very simple.
I will definitely take a look at that.
Be prepared that it will cost all your time and all your money.
No, I will probably just take a look at some competition or so,
Yeah.
and maybe if possible,
Yeah.
be as a
I'll have you sit and scream.
Yeah. Well, we may wrap this up. I
think so.
One last question.
Go.
Is there any sort of like motto or anything that you live by that you would recommend?
It has changed over the years. When I was younger, it was very important for me to do the things right. I wanted to do things the way they should be done, but now it's more important to do the right things. And I think that's what I'd recommend everybody to do. Find your passion. Remember this: sleep, nutrition, and sports, and live with your passion. Because there's no guarantee that there's anything after this life. There might be, but there's no guarantee. So don't expect that or live your life that you will live then, because there's no promise that we will even live one more day. So live now. Find your passion, live it now, and then let your life happen around you.
Great end of the episode. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.